everyone. Welcome to the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm founder and CEO of TopCyberPro.com, Jim West. I'm here with a wonderful guest. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different technologies because she's on the forefront of it. She is the editor in chief of STEMI News Network, STEMI. Sorry, mispronounced the A, but STEMI News Network. She's also a quantum YouTuber, educator, podcast host, and then some. So she is she's on that bleeding edge of all the fulcrum of all the news and the announcements, and so she knows a lot. She's exposed to a lot in this field, and so wonderful to welcome Kiran Kaur Raina to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jim. I'm pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you as well here. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. Let's start with the first big hat you wear as editor in chief of STEMI News Network. What is STEMI News Network trying to do in the world?
So we have the mission of trying to provide serious students and professionals and researchers as well with rigorous STEM news um, that is easy to digest, but not catering to the layman. We're not dumbing it down for the viewer. We're keeping the rigor intact and still making it digestible and easy to understand. So it's somewhere between being like the maximum scale being a rigorous research paper and the minimum scale being catering to a layman. We're somewhere in between and leaning towards the research paper end of rigor. And so that's what we're trying to provide video content with, like STEM news on our YouTube channel, which is going to come up soon next month. And as well as we're going to be starting a print segment as well, like a newsletter and a STEMI daily segment as well. And we have some derivative content which we'll be posting on LinkedIn as well. So these are multiple avenues that we're trying to focus on. And we're building a website as well. But mostly, we're going to start with the video aspect first.
Okay. And so, folks, I'm going to save you the Google search there. So, when all the things she just mentioned, the YouTube channel to stand up, the website, and all the additional content, all of that, she's going to provide me the links. You can just pause this video, click down in the description below, and then start connecting immediately to that news source of content. That's just going to be a flood of information for folks that want to be in the know because that's the last thing you want to be, right? You don't want to be the one that's last to know, right? And so, definitely check out these sites, and that'll be in the description below. So let's talk about so when you say from a like a research paper and then layman terms, you're trying to fit that in between that bridging that gap so that like as you said, the information is easier to digest. Could you maybe give us just a quick example? A lot of people hear about quantum, right? So let's say
Mhm.
there was a research paper about someone trying to do something with qubits and quantum or error correction. What would be an example of how you would take it from the research paper or the scientific papers to bridging that gap? What would be a way that you would restructure that information? I know that sounds like a big chunk of a question to answer, but let's just hear from you, like, because as editor chief, that's a big job, right? Where you got to take something very complex and make it, like you said, digestible. So could you give us an example? And maybe not in quantum, maybe you've done something recently with AI, but could you give us an example how you've taken a complex subject and make it like easily digestible?
Yeah, so usually research papers are catered to advanced level professors and researchers and higher students like in PhDs and all of that. So the language is pretty dense sometimes to understand for a beginner or someone who has also entered the field but isn't aware of the different notations or like just the kind of language that is spoken in a research paper. So we provide like the right balance between you get the technical information without losing its intensity, but you're also able to understand what's happening. So, for example, if I take like a quantum concept, suppose I take superposition as a
Mhm.
concept, a very layman version of explaining superposition would be you just say that qubits are a superposition state is being 0 and 1 at the same time. Right, that's a very layman way of saying it, but we break it down and go one step further and tell you what that actually means. What does it mean to be a 0 and 1 at the same time? Because a person coming from classical computation won't understand that really. It's like quite counterintuitive. Quantum mechanics is counterintuitive, but this is even more confusing to the viewer. So we go one step further and say what a wave function is, what how probabilities come to play in quantum states, how measuring the superposition state shows us the probability that it can be measured in a zero state, and then the probability that it can be measured in a one state, and how that can be written in a superposition form. So we break it down.
Wonderful. So you also are you have a YouTube channel as well. So what is the YouTube channel where you do a lot of around quantum education? What is the name of that channel?
It's Natasha Kaur Raina.
Oh, okay.
That's what I go by on YouTube. So I cover all quantum concepts, quantum news. I've started also a course that I have to get back to and complete. Yeah, so that's what I cater to over there.
So when you mention a course, is this a course that people can take online and sign up
Yes.
for? Wonderful. So you have an upcoming course. So folks, follow this site, follow her socials because she's got a course coming out. So if you want to learn about quantum, no better person to learn this from. So let's just talk about the why because a lot of people we do things. What drew you to quantum and to kind of what I look from what I'm seeing on your LinkedIn profile, you're all in on quantum, right? So what is the why? What is driving Raina, Miss Raina, to be all in on quantum?
Ever since I was a kid, I was very fascinated with astrophysics and astronomy and all these different shows, TV shows that came with Morgan Freeman as the host, right? Cosmos and how the universe works and all of those kinds of shows. So I was always intrigued by space and stars and cosmology. Um, but I was also very interested with computer science. So I chose to go down the computer science path in my high school, picking subjects that were catering to computer science, and then I wanted to do my bachelor's as well in computer science. So when I was going down that road, I was feeling a little sad that I was not having, going down the physics route and the astrophysics route as well. But then, just before I could start my undergrad, I had seen this video by Anastasia Marchenkova, and she is a business entrepreneur, and as well, she's also done a lot of research in quantum fields. So she has her own YouTube channel where she talks about a lot of quantum computing, quantum computers, a lot of startups, guide students as well. So she was talking about quantum computers, and I hadn't heard of quantum computers as such as a concept till that time. I had heard of quantum mechanics and obviously quantum physics and all of that, but the existence of quantum computers and that they are already being built by IBM and Google at the time that I was watching the video, that was really intriguing. And then she had also mentioned a couple of courses, I think, about around that time. So I then went and checked out those pages. And then knowing that quantum computing works in the intersection of physics, math, engineering, and computer science, and then that there are applications in machine learning, so quantum machine learning, and then there's applications in cybersecurity, which is quantum cryptography. Those things got me really pumped up that okay, I can do something now. It's not like it's not too late for me to go back and work with some physics. So that really got me intrigued about it, and then also the importance of quantum computing in today's day and age and in the future, how critical it's going to be, and how critical a role it's going to be in the future. That really pushed me to get more involved into it and sink my teeth into it even further.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. And if you have a link to that other YouTube channel for the other individual that inspired you, if you share that with us
Yes,
as well, we'll put it in the description. I love how
sure.
you're talking about, our future, and our future is now, right? And I tell folks when it
Yes.
comes to emerging technology, you just can't be caught flat-footed. You have to learn and prepare. Start today. There's no better time than right now to start learning about what's going to be here in our near future. And I use AI as a great example because I was having a discussion with some colleagues the other day, and they were talking about how that first wave of AI, a lot of people said, "Oh, they can't get the hands right. There's extra fingers, and it's just dysmorphia, and it's just they couldn't trust it, right?" And they were like, "Well, it's not perfect." But that was maybe that last time you can have that discussion was earlier this year. We're in, the end now of 2025. But maybe in the beginning of the year you could say that. But now within like 6 to 8 months, it could now do hands. It could do full motion video. It could create movie scenes with people in it now. That so 6 to 8 months ago we're like, oh, it can't do hands. It can't do this. What it can't do now it's what can it not do is this the question. So not to segue away from quantum, but this is a current technology that is exponentially growing day by day, week by week. We're now on ChatGPT, I think version 5, right? And Mo
Hmm.
Gadot, ex-Google exec, had famously said about a year ago that it was approaching 155 IQ at ChatGPT 4. We can rest assured that ChatGPT 5 is probably 160, and probably the next version or two will be super high IQ. And I know there's debates about measuring AI's IQ. I get it. But at the end of the day, we can't discount the fact that these AI systems have ingested all of the knowledge of all of humanity. Every medical journal, every science journal, every news article, everything that has ever been Google searched or indexed, it has. So it's like even better than Google. I mean, I use GPTs for my searches now. I don't even use Google anymore, even though they do augment with Gemini. But from your perspective, what do you see as a today where we're at with AI, and what do you think our future is going to be with AI?
I think this is just going to keep increasing exponentially, and integrating it with quantum computers in the future will also give a rise to a much more um, realistic approach to AI, and the abilities of AI are going to compound so much so in the future, um, that it's going to be quite difficult to even distinguish between reality and AI generated um, images or videos or anything really. So there are some things that are drawbacks as well, in terms of like security and personal security and all of those things. But there are so many positives to it that maybe having some regulations around it will definitely help us. But I only see like growth and quality just improving in the future with AI, and especially integrating it with quantum computing even more so.
Now, you mentioned a very key word, and it's a dangerous word too, is regulations. And in a lot of sectors and countries, we have a lack of regulations right now
Mhm.
because we on one side we want to spur and promote innovation and technology growth, right? But on the other side, you mentioned regulation, which sometimes can be somewhat restrictive for that growth or for how they expand that technology, or how disruptive that technology is allowed to be. But we commonly, if you look back in history, because history is the only thing we can look back and take a measure from, is that typically when it comes to emerging technologies, the laws and regulations are anywhere from 1 to 5, if not 8 years behind the technology, right? Because the technology is moving so fast that trying to classify what it is this month, next month it might be something completely different, and the laws don't apply no more. So, and we all know with politicians, whether you're conservative, liberal, whatever side of the political spectrum, we can all say that politicians usually don't are not as knowledgeable as some of us in tech are about these technologies. So they got to hear it from their advisors, and their advisors are probably hearing it from someone else. So by the time they get the information, they might not be properly informed or trained on what this is so that they can adequately vote that matters on passing laws and regulations that matter for that technology. So they're behind the curve, right? And so,
Mhm.
I've had discussions with folks like doctors at MITRE and other agencies regarding just the ethics of AI. And there's so many right now, we hear about technology silos. We now have these clusters of groups, groups in Europe. Europe can't unanimously agree on the set of ethics. There's some divisions there. There's some divisions in Asia. So all the different regions have their own perspectives because, ethics are driven with morals, and morals are usually driven from religion or culture. So there are some challenges with everyone agreeing globally to a set of standards, regulations, and laws, right? International law. And so, even though some areas like Europe and even the US have passed bills to help try to regulate it, they're still not to the level that we may need that could cause concern when it regards to ethics because my ethics could be slightly different from your ethics, from another doctor and another doctor. And so I think you touched upon something that we don't have enough of, but at the same time, it's difficult. It's a balancing act. How much regulation do we add and how much innovation do we want? So with that being said, what is your perceptions of like when it comes to the argument of standards and regulations and laws? What do you feel is the right balance? Is it, do we let the technology go a little too far to where it could potentially hurt people before we finally come in, or should we be always with the human in mind first?
I think definitely the latter, always with humans in mind first. Because letting it go out of hand can only just spiral and create worse outcomes in the future. So having the human touch and regulations from day one, and confining its limits to a certain degree, so that it doesn't go out of our understanding and out of our hands. That is important, and that's very difficult to get the balance right for sure. I'm not very sure of how we will be able to do that, but I only hope for the best in the future.
I love that. Hope for the best in the future, right? We all want to hope for the best, whether what age we are. A young person always wants to make sure they have a positive future, and as old folks want a positive future for our children and grandchildren and so forth. So we're all hoping for the best, right? There's a show I highly recommend to folks. I don't know if you've seen this, Miss Raina. It's called Person of Interest. It was a show that came out in like 2014, 2015. You've heard of the great director Christopher Nolan, right? Like
Yes.
Interstellar and Inception and so forth. Well, his brother is called, his name is Jonathan Nolan, and he concepted and created the show called Person of Interest. It was in the middle 2010s, and this show, dealt with a AI. A gentleman created an AI system to help the government prevent another terrorist attack. And it was like a mass surveillance plugged into all this data and information and video feeds. And then, of course, in the series, another AI got created by the government that was a very evil AI. But it dealt with a lot of those morals and ethics of an AI system that would be so powerful because information is power. And it was a very interesting show. And it's a little dated by today's standards, but if anyone's out there who wants to check out something new on like one of the streaming services that it's on, I highly recommend checking out Person of Interest. It's 5 seasons, but it does ultimately deal with the theme of how do we control what would be called a digital god when it comes to if information is power and AIs will eventually become digital gods, what are the ethics that they're going to live by and the codes and so forth that they're going to live by? And that becomes very important in our near future, sooner than probably we want to acknowledge. But again, the challenge is how do we maintain control over a system that may eventually deem us as the problem? And I jokingly say we could look at the Terminator franchise from James Cameron, with the machines and AI that's making the decision that humans are the bugs to be exterminated, that we are the worst things for the planet. Because if you look at a high level, we cause pollution. We are taking from the earth, and we're animals are suffering because of us. So a system could easily look at us as the problem. Humans are the problem. But hopefully, like I said, we all hope. The key word here is we hope for the best. We want to leverage the power and the utility of these technologies to help us do things better, more efficient, so that maybe we can have a lesser of a footprint on the planet through the efficiencies that we may gain from these technologies. But that brings me to this question now, Ms. Raina, is that there's a lot of issue right now, and no one's not talking. There's not enough news outlets talking about this, but this is a significant issue. AI takes a lot of compute. And when you take a lot of
Mhm.
compute, that means these data centers that are hosting these AI systems, every time you type something in ChatGPT, it's like seconds, and you got all of this text, like just generating super fast information to you, like instantly. That takes a lot of processing power in a data center somewhere in the world. And with that being said, there are some areas of the world that are seeing drastic taxing on their electrical grids because of the power consumption that these AI systems. Before AI systems were, it was all about cryptocurrencies, right? People were talking about all the power grids. You could tell what neighbors' houses were either doing one or two things if they were using lots of power. They either had marijuana farm in their house because the heating, or they were mining cryptocurrency. So you could look at electrical grids and go, there's these spikes in electrical usage. These people are either crypto mining or got marijuana they're growing in their house or illicit drugs. But now it's the data centers. The data centers now, because of AI, their power consumptions went through the roof. And this is a potential because we're building more and more data centers. There's only so much power in certain regions that can be generated, right? Because we haven't, if you don't have nuclear power, right? If you're dependent upon petroleum-based power plants where they're burning coal or using some petroleum-based source of power, or to generate hydroelectric power, even not everywhere has the rivers and dams to do that. So this has become a concern with the amount of the power that's being consumed by these AI systems, right? And now that we add quantum computing eventually, it takes power to do cooling systems. Let me start off with folks that the misconception. When people see these pictures of quantum computers, they see this big long tubes of gold and silver. That is not the quantum system, folks. That is just the cooling rig, okay? That's the refrigeration rig, if you will, the lattice rig. But then in it at the top is going to be a little bitty chip. It's a small chip. At the end of the day, the quantum chip is super small in relation to what we see and think is the quantum computer. That's just the cooling. Okay, folks. So because that cooling, if you do study a little bit about quantum, it needs to be absolute zero and measured in Kelvin, in the Kelvin scale. And so with that being said, that takes power to do that level of cooling. And in those facilities and labs, that requires a good bit of power to cool to that level. So with the spread and use of more companies developing and making their own labs and their quantum circuits and so forth, we're going to see even more taxation on our power grids. So back to my statement, and the question for you, Ms. Raina, is what do you see as our potential solutions for being able to increase our power capacity so that we can accommodate these emerging technologies?
I don't really have a solution as such, but I know that there are a lot of people who are researching and involved in creating a better future in terms of how these problems will affect us in the future. And it is affecting us already in the present. I mean, the solution isn't to get people to use AI less, right? To
Yeah.
lower their consumption, because that's not going to happen. Even I think there was this post recently about a few months, maybe 5 6 months earlier, that spoke about the environmental repercussions of using AI, and that went really viral on LinkedIn. But there was like 90% of people disagreeing with them. They were like, then stop doing so and so thing, because that also has implications to the climate change. So you can't get them to, especially it was, I think, during the Ghibli trend, image trend. Yeah, that was when that was happening.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of people definitely researching these aspects on like different materials that we can use, different types of um, um, power sources that we could use. There are different people. I know there's some lot of young brains working on this, even in high school, that have really dedicated their life to this, because this is definitely going to be a huge problem in the future. And there are different alternate ways of like different methods that we could use to reduce these effects. And there are also some people who are looking into quantum computing in terms of reducing this effect through like the increase of the compute that will happen. I'm sure that as you mentioned, there are also some downsides to using quantum computers, but there are some people who are looking at it to also because it exponentially increases the speed up of compute. So that might also have some effects in like reducing the um, power that we're using. But yeah, there are different people looking at different sides of it, from approaching it from different angles. um, and yeah, so I hope that someone does come up with a solution, and I will also be looking into it to make sure that I also contribute to that.
And you mentioned a lot of young people are really getting involved at an early stage, which is brilliant to see because there's a lot of startups in quantum, and a lot of them do have a focus where their whole purpose is to try to find quantum systems, particularly the circuits and chips that can operate at or closer to room temperature. And I believe that is a huge aim that we should all be looking forward to is ensuring that these startups that have the smart brilliant brains behind them get the adequate funding so they can continue that research and development. Because the only day when people talk about when am I going to have a quantum computer sitting in my office, you're not going to have that until because you would have to be in a lab where everything's cooled to absolute zero as of today. But I do believe that we will hopefully in the next 5, maybe 6 to 8 years, we'll see quantum computers in offices, but they might be in very cool facilities. But the goal of a quantum computer or general purpose quantum computer to be sitting on your desk, I think that might not be something in our future. It will be more cloud based. I think quantum as a service will be something we get really acquainted with very, very soon, actually, through efforts like Amazon and others that is going to have quantum as a service. But I think that for the future of having a quantum on my desk, it would have to. The one requirement would absolutely have to operate as close to room temperature as possible, but definitely not absolute zero. So, but I think that there's hope. I love the keyword so far. Seems to be the theme so far for this episode is the hope that we will have our best and brightest minds solve these problems for us in the near future. So at this point of the podcast, you mentioned the other YouTuber that was very influential in you pursuing your career so far in quantum and kind of going all into quantum. So this question is more about the people that have had a positive impact in your career so far. It could be professors, co-workers, colleagues, managers, or just someone in industry. You already mentioned one YouTuber that was very impactful, but what are some names of the folks that have had a positive impact on your career and your path so far?
I'd say Dr.L Venkata Subramaniam from he's the IBM Quantum India lead. He's definitely had a positive impact, and he's definitely guided me a lot. And he's been on my podcast as well, the first ever podcast. So he did give me like a boost to my channel as well. And his posts and following him on LinkedIn, he gives a lot of useful advice through his posts. So that has definitely helped me a lot. And a lot of support from KG sir from BQP. He's also given me a lot of support and opportunities and guidance. I'd say, yeah, them and people who I don't interact with personally, but watch on LinkedIn or YouTube would definitely be the YouTuber that you mentioned, as well as Olivia Lanes is a huge inspiration from IBM as well. And I would also say there's another YouTube channel known as LookingGlassUniverse, where she breaks down quantum mechanics concepts, some physics concepts, some maths concepts as well, in a very interesting manner. So her channel has definitely been a huge inspiration for getting into this field. And she also did support me in my first video. I think she's also commented on my first video, so you can go and check that out as well. So, receiving support from such legends, I would say, in the quantum field, feels really amazing and encouraging to pursue this field even more.
Awesome. And it's through people like that, through their guidance, mentorship, and just them being a leader in the field. It's wonderful when you have those interactions because it shows you that they're human beings too, right? That's really good. The and please, if you have their socials and YouTube channels, please share those with me. I'll make sure in the description so other folks can discover them as well. So thank you for mentioning them. Um, my next question is going to be more focused on the what are some of the things that you're working on in your near future that is important to you that maybe you haven't announced on any of your socials yet. What is next in the path for you?
Right now, immediately, I'm trying to work on certain quantum computing courses. One is a free course that I'm going to be publishing that I've already started to publish on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
But there's been a long gap since the first video has been published, so I have to get back to that and complete that for sure. I'm also planning on bringing um, more intense industry level um, quantum machine learning and quantum cryptography courses that will help students to transition from their student phase into going into the industry and really doing internships and jobs. So to really make it rigorous enough for them to actually get jobs, I'm trying to work on that. So that is a startup, if you might say. That's what I'm working on right now. Like creating the curriculum and recording the courses and really making sure that it's high quality. That is one of my biggest goals right now. Yeah.
Okay. And so the I'm sorry, I'm having to refer to my notes real quick here. Um, The let's go into the speed round of questions I like to do with all of my guests. It's kind of I call it my moment of levity. It's nothing technical, and again these are just rapid fire questions. So it's more so whatever the first answer comes into your mind, just say it. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay, so will you humor me
Sure.
for a series of rapid fire? Okay,
Sure.
the first question's easy one: cake or pie?
Cake.
What kind of cake?
Chocolate cake.
Cold or hot chocolate cake?
Oh, I think hot chocolate cake.
Hot chocolate cake. Okay, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Uh, Technically, uh, no.
Okay, then there's no right or wrong answer on that one. All right, now this one is going to split the room of all IT professionals because we all love one or the other or love one a little bit more than the other. Okay, so I'm going to hit you with this one. It's a difficult one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh my God, I've not watched either.
Oh, okay. I've had guests also say the same that they don't watch either. Oh my goodness. Okay, well that's an answer. Neither. Okay. And then what has been your most favorite book of all time that you've read, and what was the last book that you've read?
My most favorite book was The Almanack of Naval Ravikant. That's an amazing book. Talks about wealth creation, about happiness in general, the kinds of people you should surround yourself with. So it's a non-fiction book, and the author is someone that I really look up to. And he has his own podcast as well, the Naval podcast, Naval Ravikant podcast. That is also a great podcast to listen to. It really helps you think of money in a different way and how earning money is different from wealth creation. That's a huge part of the book and the podcast. So it's really, if you really read the book, I don't want to give you an explanation of it and then ruin the
Yes.
experience of reading the book. So I'd urge the viewers to really read the book, and there are a lot of gems in that book, for sure. And there's one quote that he said somewhere on a podcast or something. I don't know if it's mentioned in the book as well, but this is one of my like favorite quotes from him. That is, I'm like paraphrasing it, but if you walk into a library, there shouldn't be any book in this library that you're afraid of. So that's like a beautiful way of telling you that to be a generalist, but also a specialist at the same time. So I definitely love that quote. And the most recent book would be a technical book. It was a practical guide to quantum computing, which I did a review of, and I also had a podcast with the author. So that was a great book. It's has Qiskit code in it, and so it was a great resource for beginners to get started with quantum computing. So that was the most recent book that I read. Yeah.
Excellent. So you mentioned a lot of these guests have been on your podcast. Who, and again, I hate to single out, because all guests have wonderful perspectives and insights, right? So even for me to answer the question from my own channel, what has been my greatest podcast guest? So that's not the question I want to ask. What has been some perspectives? What has been the best perspectives of quantum you've learned from your podcast guests?
From my first podcast guest, Dr.L Venkata Subramaniam, um, I asked him one of the, I think the first question that I asked him was, or the second question that I asked him was, what was his opinion on quantum hype? And so his answer to that question was really, really great, because he mentioned how quantum hype has pros as well. So it gets people interested in the field, and get people to know about the field who haven't heard of the word term quantum or quantum computing. So this hype definitely has positives as well. So that idea really was a great perspective to the whole quantum hype argument. Um, that is one thing that's coming to my mind right now. And apart from that, um, when I had interviewed Dr. Elias, who's the author of the book that I just mentioned, A Practical Guide to Quantum Computing, he had given some really great resources, learning resources, which even I hadn't come across. So I'll also give a link to that YouTube resource that
Yes.
he had provided. Yeah, that's a very underrated one. Um, yeah, so that's what's coming to my mind right now. But there's been like a lot of points and that have really changed, yeah, and
I
given me
love
a lot
that.
of perspectives.
You mentioned the hype question, and that actually brings me to my next question. Because as an educator, right,
Yes.
and trying to share knowledge and information with others, right, and I applaud you for working on the course to also help other people get into quantum. But there's a lot of with the hype, there's a lot of sometimes misinformation, or what we will boil down to into misconceptions slash myths versus reality, right? So, what are some of the challenges that you face when you're interfacing with folks from whether the internet or in college or in any circles that you have these discussions in, where you have to kind of correct that misinformation and then, kind of say, well, these things are myths or misconceptions, myths, but this is the realities. What are some of those challenges you've faced yourself?
Yeah. So I've met people on like both sides of the spectrum, where they're either like having this idea of quantum computers are going to like revolutionize the world like immediately and be like some a magician or something like that. And then the other side who is completely against quantum computers and say that there's nothing's going to happen out of it, nothing's going to come out of it. So really talking to these two sides of people, two types of people, can be a little difficult, especially the negative people who've like set their mind that this is not going to work, even if they mostly most of them haven't really gone through like some research papers, or you guess get into the field and then find the technical aspects of it and then have an opinion is what I'd say. And the people who are also spreading like intense positivity towards quantum computing and this hyping it up extremely also are people, these are both kind of people who don't have technical knowledge. So when you have technical knowledge and you're really reading through research papers and interacting with people, folks in the industry, you have a realistic idea of what quantum computing is right now and how long it'll take to reach certain goals and what the drawbacks are currently and what issues we have to focus on right now to really have quantum advantage and quantum supremacy in the future, in the near future, and take advantage of it in and have like applications in healthcare and in AI, and really have a better future, and like fix climate change and everything, and not stay in the current state that we are in,
Yes.
with all these wars and all of these things. Yeah.
So you mentioned a great term, quantum supremacy, and quantum supremacy to me is the first nation state to have a quantum supercomputer. And I don't think anyone can agree yet. I know there was an article published about a month ago by Fujitsu where they actually claimed to have a quantum supercomputer, and I think they misspoke because I don't think all quantum scientists and physicists have unanimously agreed on what the threshold of qubits or a percentage of error correction. What are the metrics that form the first quantum supercomputer? I don't think anyone can agree, but they were
Hmm.
bold in that statement. Fujitsu said we have a quantum supercomputer, and of course IBM delivered to the Riken Institute in Japan. They delivered one of the two fastest quantum supercomputers that they have. So they put one over there, and I'm looking forward to what experiments and things that they do in the near future with that. But quantum supremacy is a big word that people should get very acquainted with, right? There's another term that gets kind of bad press is Q-Day, because that's what the media wants to run with. That quantum computers are going to just wreck our lives, and our bank accounts will be zero, and so on and so forth. And I do a presentation I've been doing since 2017 that I've given at conferences around the world where I kind of address Q-Day to a degree. But I tell people, when the people that talk about the Terminators and the bank accounts of Wall Street being destroyed and wrecking all the markets, killing Bitcoin, just killing the blockchain, etc., and all these doomsday scenarios. But what I tell people is there's a much scarier scenario than just waking up to outright destruction, is where everything looks the same, where it's replaced your reality completely to where we get to a point where we have deep fakes now, we have things that we can't trust. And to me, the key thing moving forward for a lot of our interactions as human beings is how do we use the technology to prove authenticity? Because COVID and it increased the ability of live streamers to be successful in their lives because people went away from TV. You can't trust reality shows because they're scripted, it's fake. People wanted something real. That's why I don't understand it completely myself because I'm a person, if I see a video game, I want to play the video game, right? But we have a whole business around streamers where people watch other people playing video games. People will watch people sleeping. They're sleep streamers. All of this has now become a market and viable businesses. We can laugh, right? Because maybe it's silly to us, but it's real money being made by people sharing their lives to whatever degree of reality they choose to show the world. But to me, I believe the reason why so many people are drawn to these things is because of authenticity. We're in a world where we can't trust our government, we can't trust the news, we can't trust the internet, but we can trust this person that's sharing their lives with us. That seems the realest thing in our lives. And I believe that we have to discover how do we use this technology, whether it's AI or quantum, replacing our realities. When people talk, we're in the matrix, right? I personally don't believe we're in the matrix. I can listen to their arguments and listen to what they offer, but all of this conspiracy theories aside, I do believe that we will eventually have a powerful enough quantum supercomputer in some time in the future, maybe not my lifetime, but some in the future that has the potential to completely control the stock market, to completely control whole entire blockchains, and to replace our reality with the reality it wants to give us. And I think that is the real dangerous Q-Day that I think that we should really be concerned about, not like we saw recently, and then again, this is going to probably air later in the year. But recently, as of this recording, there was the airports disrupted around the world due to a glitch in the software. We're more likely we're going to hear that it was a cyber attack. But the dangerous part was in Dallas, Texas, they had two airports that lost communications with each other. So there's
Hmm.
planes in the sky. They had to ground the planes from taking off. That's the easy part. But there's planes in the sky waiting to land. Some of these planes might not have a lot of fuel or might not be able to make it to the next airport. But all comms was disrupted. There was videos now on the internet showing that planes that did have communications with the different airports were having to relay messages between the two towers. That is scary. That is super scary that we are seeing cyber attacks accelerate on a scale such as this, that are attacking legacy systems, software that hadn't been updated no telling how long. So these things are every day, every week prominent. They're there. And a lot of these we won't hear about in the news because those organizations, businesses will find ways to suppress the news. So we're in a very interesting time where AI is helping attackers get better attacks, more efficient, and taking down entire systems. So again, you can just check the news. This is now middle of September, and look at the disruption in the airline industry. Right, they had to go to manual check-ins and reservation checks. So the systems again were down. So I think that AI has done a lot to help improve efficiency of attacks, and then quantum is only going to add even more to it. When we think of things like distributed denial of service, imagine a denial of service attack orchestrated by a quantum computer, but leveraging supercomputers and grid nets and botnets to orchestrate it even to near perfection. That's a scary future, but again, the key word being hope. We hope that we'll create the systems that'll help us, AI systems that will defend against the bad AIs and so on and so forth. So maybe in our future, it'll be AI versus AI, just like Person of Interest touched upon. I'm going to definitely recommend people to check that out. I'll put a link to the show, the Wikipedia page about the show, so you can read about it. Um, but thank you for sharing a lot about how you've worked with the myths and reality and your podcast and YouTube channels. Please send me all of those links because all of those links, folks, I'm gonna copy from what Miss Raina sends me. I'm gonna put them in the description below. So you're gonna have a lot of channels to check out, a lot of podcasts to listen to, but particularly hers as well. And just check out all these links because getting in the know is going to be crucial. Because whether you're in cyber or not, let's say you're just casually watching it because you saw it said quantum in the title, and you're watching this video and you're like, okay, well, when it gets here, I'll worry about it then. That's when it's too late, right? Right?
Yes.
Imagine this. How many people have you heard around you say, if I only bought Bitcoin back when it was X amount of cents or dollars or what have you, right? Think about it. We're at that moment now, right? We should have studied quantum back when Miss Raina was starting her course. I should have been taking her course because now I'm caught flat-footed. I'm not prepared for the future that is today. So that's what I tell people. Start learning now. While you're just on lunch break, while you're just in the morning checking your emails, your boss hasn't come in yet, that's time that you can watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast, and start educating yourself. Because what happens the day where you don't know enough about quantum and now you're just like the rest of the population going, what do we do? What do we do? No, be the person that says, I know what I'm doing. I've already prepared for this moment. Being prepared, it's a saying as old as time. It's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And education and knowledge is always a benefit to yourself. Like you mentioned with the library, don't have a book in the library that you're afraid of, right? So why would you be afraid of learning about quantum today, folks? So if you're watching this, check the links below. Ms. Raina, I give all of my guests the final word. So thank you for letting me go on that rant for a minute. But I give all my guests the final word, whether you want to talk about quantum, AI, crypto, all three, or if you want to talk about anything else that you want, whatever you like to talk about, the floor is yours.
I'd like to continue with what you were saying because you covered such important points, and that is what even I want people, entire population of the entire globe, to also take away from this conversation, that to really see the importance of quantum computing and AI, and not be lazy around, especially the new generations. Don't laze around and watch brain rot content on Instagram. Instead, take out a few hours and find out what quantum computing is, find out what AI can do, what they can do today, what they are capable of in the future, what are their drawbacks right now, how is it going to impact your future, because you're going to be, especially the new generations are going to be part of the world for the next couple of decades. So what is the earth going to look like at that point of time? So if you wake up today and contribute and help in quantum computing and AI and cybersecurity, we will have a better future, a better earth in general, um, and better experience of life as well. It all depends on the youth of today, for what our future is going to look like in the next couple of decades. Um, and then that is going to then decide how your offsprings are going to experience Earth as. So that's really important. And I would definitely agree with everything that you've left us with right now. And yeah, that's what I would like to say.
Wonderful. And again, folks, never lose hope. Well, Ms. Raina, thank you so much for being a guest on the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for everything you shared. Please send me all those links, folks. Pause, check the links below. She's leading that forefront. Follow her on the socials and just stay in the know. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much.